Welcome to Dobbler Talk, a video cast discussing strategy, tactics, cards and card play, decks and deck building for Game of Thrones 2nd Edition. I am your host Dobbler because I like to hear myself talk to myself. Welcome to another episode of Dobbler Talk. In our last episode, we introduced Dobbler's rules of setup. And one of the neat things that came from that episode was the community's own James Wentworth went and created an AGOT setup analyzer page. I recommend you go visit it at agotsetup.com. It's a lot of fun putting in a deck and then running thousands of simulations on how that deck's going to set up. He used Dobbler's rules of setup as well as several other tools to get the site up and going, and it is a great tool for the community. Well, this week we are going to continue with Dobbler's rules of setup and break down a more specific situation related to my third rule, metering out limited cards. So let's take a look at a sample hand here. This particular hand is a Targaryen hand, most likely a fealty or no agenda deck. And the first thing you might notice about this hand is that I have 3 limited cards. So you might consider that you're going to mulligan it, but when you look at the rest of the hand, you realize you're going to have a 4-card drop, spending 8 gold one way or the other, either a 4-2-2-0, 4-2-2-0, or 4-2-1-1, like that. Okay, so really, all things being equal, you're going to have a 4-card setup, spending all 8 gold. I highly recommend that you do not mulligan this hand. Remember, one of my rules of don't mulligan an average hand. I would consider this at least average, if not slightly better, so I'm not going to mulligan this hand. But what we want to do today is ask ourselves the question, is there a proper way to meter out these 3 limited cards in order to give us the most income possible? So all things being equal, how do we meter out these 3 limited cards and generate the most income? So first, let's get rid of those because they're not relevant to our discussion right now. We know that we can play any one of these 3 limited cards on setup, first turn, and second turn. So the question is, how do we generate the most income? Well, let's look at each of them. King's Road, it's going to cost you 1. At some point in time, either setup, first turn, or second turn, it's going to cost you 1, and it's a one-time big boost of lowering the cost of the next character. You marshal this phase by 3. The King's Road is discarded as part of the process. So, just for the record, the King's Road gives you a one-time -2 reduction. Okay? Illyrio's Estate, 0 cost. Kneel Illyrio's Estate to reduce the cost of the next target card you play, or you marshal this phase by 1. Okay, so on the turn you play it, it costs 0, but it also gives you a +1 reduction. So, alright, and it repeats every turn. Interestingly, a card that stays in play and gives you reduction every turn really only has a net positive return of 1 less than the King's Road, so something to think about. And then there is the Rose Road. 0 cost, +1 gold, but don't forget, you are not going to get that gold on the turn you marshal it. You have already counted gold by the time you're marshaling. So, it's important to remember you're going to pay 0. It gives you +1 for every following turn. So what we're going to ask ourselves is between setup, first turn, and second turn, because I have 3 limited cards and I can only play 1 per round, what is the optimal way to do this? If you are an old-time player, maybe this is something you already know off the top of your head, maybe it's not, but hopefully this is valuable to everyone. Well, one thing to think about is when we were looking at these cards and we were asking ourselves, what's the net positive generation that they give you? They are all a little bit different. This is a one-time boost. These two are continual boosts, but Illyrio's Estate helps you on the very turn you play it, and the Rose Road helps you every turn thereafter. Let me interrupt real quick and say this. Generating native gold, as Rose Road does, versus a reduction that Illyrio's Estate or King's Road do, are not necessarily equal. Obviously, I would rather have native gold if I had the choice, because I can spend it on anything, including neutral cards and events, while Illyrio's Estate and King's Road are very specific in what they are reducing. But remember, at the beginning of this episode, we said all else being equal. So we are going to consider native gold generation and cost reduction to be equal for now. So anyways, two of these cards can help you on the very turn you play them, King's Road and Illyrio's Estate, while Rose Road cannot. But we have to factor in this important fact. During setup, you are going to pay for a card, and yet you are going to get no benefit during setup. So is there a card of these three that by playing on setup, we remove a possible downside of the card? And yes, there is. The Rose Road. We know we don't get that gold on the turn we marshal it, but if we play it on setup where there's no benefit that Illyrio's Estate or King's Road give us, we move ourselves into a place where we have removed the Rose Road negative, which is that you don't get the gold till the following turn. So by paying for the Rose Road during setup, you get the gold during the first turn and the second turn. You can then play Illyrio's Estate on that first turn, still get its cost reduction on the first turn and the second turn, and then during that during your second round, you would play the King's Road, pay the 1 gold for it, and get your 3 cost reduction. Now, I realize some of you are going to say, but I really want to put out my big character on the first turn, or I need that extra income. And look, I understand there are going to be situations when you are not necessarily wanting to maximize your income over the first 2 rounds total, but you need a burst during 1 round, and that's going to happen, but that's not what we're discussing here. What we're asking ourselves is, what is the optimal way to do it over the first 2 rounds to generate the most total income and income reduction? So just as I mentioned, if we start with the Rose Road, think of it this way. I'm going to get an extra 1 during the first round and an extra 1 during the second round. If I then played Illyrio's Estate, I'm going to get an extra reduction in the first round and an extra reduction in the second round, and then the King's Road gives me the 2 reduction in the second round. If you flip-flop it and say, I start with Illyrio's Estate during setup, fine, but you still only get the reduction during the first round and the second round. Now if you play the Rose Road on the first round, you're not getting that till the second round. And then the King's Road, you're not getting until the second round. So you've reduced your possible income by 1. If you do it this way, do King's Road during setup, and then say Rose Road during first round, and Illyrio's Estate during the second round, you have severely hampered your income, essentially reducing your possible income by 3 in that case. So just quick add. If you do it the way I first mentioned, Rose Road, Illyrio's Estate, and the King's Road, you have given yourself +2, +2, +2. If you do it this way, Illyrio's Estate, King's Road, Rose Road, you've given yourself +2, +2, none. If you do it this way, King's Road, Rose Road, Illyrio's Estate, you've given yourself +2, +1, +1. If you do it this way, +2, +2, none. So you can see that for the purposes of maximizing income during your first 3 rounds, you want to get the Rose Road in your setup. You probably want to play Illyrio's Estate on the first turn, and then the King's Road on the second turn. Any questions? No, I know that there are exceptions to the rule because there are just going to be times when you're not looking to maximize your total income over the first 2 rounds of the game and instead trying to get out a specific card. But I would say that in many, many games, you are going to find yourself in a better situation by being patient and maximizing your overall income instead of looking for that quick burst early in the game. Anyways, thanks for watching. This is Dobler Talk.